Imagine this. You're standing in front of a mirror, but the reflection looking back isn't quite yours. It has your eyes, your smile, your features, but there's something else behind them, a subtle hollowness, as if some part of you has quietly slipped away, replaced by a familiar ache. It doesn't scream, it whispers, not loud enough to be heard, but persistent enough to shape every decision you make. You tell yourself you're fine, in control. You can stop anytime you want, but you don't. And deep down, you suspect you never will. This is not a story about heroin needles or empty liquor bottles. It's not confined to the alleyway or the rehab center. No, the battlefield is far closer, hidden beneath clean clothes, polite smiles, and tightly managed schedules. It's the endless scrolling at midnight, the emotional eating when no one's watching, the pornography that redefines intimacy in the dark. It's the obsession with approval, the compulsion for control, the secret idolatry of image. Addiction is not merely a substance, it's a soul's slow starvation. What if the war you're fighting isn't against what's outside you, but within? What if the true enemy wears your face and knows your desires better than you do? And what if, and this is the most haunting question of all, you've made peace with it? Can a person be both prisoner and warden, both victim and willing accomplice? What drives this silent war beneath the surface of ordinary life? Where does it begin? And why does it feel so inevitable? To understand, we must go deeper into the tangled roots of desire, memory, meaning, and the longings we were never meant to carry alone. Addiction, at its core, is not a mere chemical imbalance or behavioral malfunction. It is the cry of the soul for something eternal in a world of fading pleasures. Augustine of Hippo, writing in the 4th century, knew this torment well. "Our hearts are restless," he said, "until they rest in thee." He wasn't speaking as a detached philosopher, but as a man who had tasted every pleasure the ancient world could offer, only to find them empty. And yet how modern his struggle sounds. Like us, he wandered through distractions, mistaking intensity for intimacy, pleasure for peace. Modern psychology confirms what Augustine intuited centuries ago. Carl Jung described addiction as a spiritual thirst, a misguided attempt to fill a void that only the transcendent can satisfy. Larry Crabb went further, suggesting that behind every addictive behavior is a legitimate God-given need that's been twisted by fear, shame, or trauma. The wound festers in silence, and addiction becomes the salve, temporary, deceitful, and enslaving. Pascal spoke of a God-shaped vacuum in every human heart. But here lies the paradox. Though we are wired for the infinite, we continually settle for the finite. Why? Because the infinite demands surrender, while the finite offers illusionary control. We choose chains over freedom, not because we love them, but because we fear what life would be without them. C.S. Lewis wrote that we are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us. But this foolishness is not accidental. It's formed by a culture that profits from our numbness and confusion. What begins as desire becomes dependency. What once soothed now rules. And yet the deepest tragedy remains unseen, because it's happening inside you, inside all of us. The chains of addiction do not rattle. They hum, quietly, insidiously, beneath the surface of daily life. You wake up, you check your phone, dopamine rush. Someone liked your post. A text gives you a fleeting sense of importance, but it fades, so you scroll again and again, not because it satisfies, but because something in you refuses silence. Boredom feels like suffocation, stillness like death. Addiction is not just what you do, it's what you become. It rewires the brain, reshapes your perceptions, and redefines what you call normal. The prefrontal cortex, that noble part of you tasked with wisdom and restraint, slowly submits to the amygdala's primal scream. Pleasure now, meaning later. And the more you obey, the less you recognize yourself. But the consequences reach beyond biology. Philosophically, you begin to fragment. Kierkegaard warned of the despair that comes from living as someone you are not, what he called the sickness unto death. Addiction breeds exactly that, a counterfeit self constructed from cravings and compulsions. You no longer act, you react. You are no longer becoming, you are surviving. Society doesn't notice. In fact, it rewards your fragmentation. You're productive, efficient, entertained. You smile in public and collapse in private. You become two people, one visible, one buried. And over time, the real you becomes harder to find. Meanwhile, culture whispers a lie dressed as kindness. Everyone's addicted to something. It normalizes the dysfunction, turning cries for help into quirky personality traits. But make no mistake, this is no harmless habit. This is a slow erosion of the soul. What if this isn't just a problem to manage, but a war to resist? The first step isn't detox, it's defiance, a holy rebellion. But how do you fight an enemy that feels like part of you? To rebel against addiction is not merely to resist temptation, it is to declare war on a false identity. True rebellion begins with awakening, a violent clarity, the realization that the thing you thought was saving you is the very thing bearing you alive. You look at the habit, the substance, the screen, and instead of comfort, you feel disgust. But here's the twist. This disgust is grace. It's the moment your chains begin to rust. Blaise Pascal once wrote, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Solitude terrifies the addict because it exposes the silence they've spent their lives avoiding. But it is in that silence where the sacred begins to speak." Historically, those who broke free weren't always strong. They were willing to question their narrative, willing to lose in order to live. Augustine wept beneath a fig tree and cried out, "How long, O Lord?" and in surrender found freedom. G.K. Chesterton, once lost in hedonism, discovered that truth wasn't abstract, it was incarnate. And Kierkegaard, he realized that the self is only truly found when it is rested transparently in God. This is not about behavior modification, it's metamorphosis. You are not just trying to stop something, you are trying to become someone real, someone whole. So you fight, not with gritted teeth, but with open hands. You replace false pleasure with deeper joy. You reclaim wonder. You build new rituals, habits of holiness. You silence the noise not by distraction, but by communion. This is the rebellion, to want what is eternal more than what is easy. But what then is the final key? What is the truth that changes everything? Here it is, the truth that doesn't just break the chain, but shatters the very illusion that you were ever the one holding the key. You were never meant to fight this war alone. Addiction is not merely a failure of willpower, it is a misdirected form of worship. Every craving, every obsession, every moment of weakness is a liturgy of the soul, a ritual that reveals what we believe will save us. And if addiction is worship gone wrong, then freedom begins with reordering your love. St. Augustine again knew the secret. Love God and do as you please. At first glance, it sounds dangerous, but it's not a loophole, it's the path. When you love rightly, your desires begin to align with reality. And God is not a cosmic buzzkill. He is the source of all beauty, all joy, all fulfillment. To love Him is to come home. In Christ, you are not a slave to your impulses. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are not your shame. You are a new creation. The cross is not just where your sin died, it's where your false self was crucified. And in the resurrection, your truest identity was born. This is the ultimate paradox. You don't conquer addiction by trying harder. You conquer it by dying. Dying to the illusion of control. Dying to the ego that clings to false comfort. And in that death, you rise, not as a fractured addict, but as a redeemed soul. This is the gospel. You are more broken than you ever feared, and more loved than you ever dreamed. Thank you for reflecting with me today. If this video meant something to you, consider liking and subscribing. And until next time, stay curious.